Chosen one, stop scrolling, stop everything, right now. Why are you awake at this exact moment? Why did your eyes find this message today? Why does your chest feel tight with anticipation you can't explain? Here's the shocking truth they don't want you to know. You've been living in spiritual delays that weren't accidents, they were arrangements. Every closed door, every unanswered prayer, every moment you felt forgotten by heaven itself. It was all positioning you for this Wednesday. Listen closely. Chosen one, and yes, that's exactly what you are. Even if the world convinced you otherwise, this Wednesday isn't just another day on the calendar. It's a crack in eternity. A thin place where the divine bleeds through into your reality. Can you feel it? The air around you. It's different, isn't it? Something's trembling in the unseen. Your spirit recognizes what your mind hasn't caught up to yet. God has been whispering your name in rooms you've never entered. And Wednesday is when those doors swing wide open. For 50 years, I've watched heaven move in the lives of the forgotten, the overlooked, the ones who thought their time had passed. And I'm telling you with prophetic certainty, if you're hearing this right now, it's not by accident, it's by divine appointment. Not on man's calendar, but God's eternal timeline. You've been asking when, Lord, haven't you? When will my breakthrough come? When will my prayers be answered? When will I finally step into what you promised me? The answer is Wednesday. This isn't metaphor. This isn't feel-good theology. This is a prophetic declaration over your life. Your spiritual winter is ending this Wednesday. The delay that felt like denial, that was preparation. The waiting that felt like punishment, that was positioning. Comment 777 below. If your spirit's already stirring, that's not just a number, that's your alignment code. That's heaven's confirmation that you were meant to hear this message at this precise moment. Stay with me, because by the time we finish, you won't see yourself or this Wednesday the same again. Wednesday has been marked, sealed, appointed, and you've been chosen to walk through what God is about to open. And to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks, your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. This Wednesday isn't coming to you empty-handed. It's carrying everything you've been praying for. Are you ready to receive it? Why does it feel like God put your life on mute? Why have your prayers been echoing back empty for months, maybe years? Why does every door you approach slam shut just as you reach for the handle? You've lived long. You've fought hard. You've weathered storms that would have destroyed weaker souls. But lately, it's felt like life put you on pause, hasn't it? Like you're walking through spiritual molasses. Like God went quiet, and your prayers got lost somewhere between your heart and heaven. I see you there, chosen one, sitting in that chair, wondering if your best days are behind you. Wondering if God forgot your address. Wondering if all those promises He whispered to your spirit decades ago were just echoes of your own desperate hope. Here's what's been eating at your soul. You feel invisible. At 65, 70, 75, 80 years old, society writes you off as yesterday's news. Your own family treats you like a relic. Your dreams feel foolish. Your calling feels expired. The world told you to retire from life itself. But what if I told you that everything you've been feeling, this spiritual pause, this divine silence, this maddening sense of being stuck in neutral while everyone else speeds past you, what if none of it was punishment? What if it was positioning? Listen to me carefully. In Psalm 31-15, David cried out, "My times are in your hands, not my timing, not my schedule, your times, God's timing." And right now, in this very moment, you're not late, you're not forgotten, you're not too old. You're right on heaven's schedule. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver Israel. 80, Can you imagine? While his peers were settling into their rocking chairs, complaining about their arthritis, God showed up at a burning bush and said, "Moses, your real work starts now." Moses thought his story was over. God said it was just beginning. You see, there's something the enemy doesn't want you to understand about this pause you've been in. He convinced you it was abandonment. He whispered it was rejection. He made you believe that the silence meant God had moved on to younger, stronger, more relevant vessels. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. The truth? God has been preparing you in private for what he's about to do in public. Every year of experience, every scar from battle, every lesson learned through pain, every moment of endurance when you wanted to quit but didn't, that wasn't wasted time. That was warrior training. Think about it. When God needed someone to confront Pharaoh, the most powerful man on earth, he didn't choose a 5-year-old with enthusiasm but no wisdom. He chose an 80-year-old with fire in his bones and unshakable faith forged in the wilderness. Your wilderness wasn't meant to bury you. It was meant to birth you. But here's where it gets controversial, and I need you to lean in close. The church has fed you a lie about aging. They've told you that once you hit retirement age, your job is to sit quietly in the pew, write checks for missions, and wait for heaven. Garbage. Absolute garbage. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Anna was 84 when she prophesied over baby Jesus. God's greatest generals often don't hit their stride until their hair turns silver. Why? Because it takes decades to build the kind of faith that can't be shaken. It takes years of walking with God to develop the spiritual muscle memory that doesn't panic when circumstances scream chaos. It takes a lifetime of testing to create a vessel strong enough to carry revival. And that's exactly what you are. A vessel God has been strengthening for decades, preparing for this Wednesday moment. You want to know why you felt stuck? Because God has been holding you back from settling for anything less than his best. Every door that closed protected you from a detour. Every delay positioned you for divine timing. Every moment of waiting refined your faith like gold in the fire. The pause wasn't punishment, it was preservation. Right now, as I speak these words, something is shifting in the spiritual realm. The atmosphere around your life is crackling with anticipation. Angels are taking their positions. Wednesday isn't just coming on the calendar. It's approaching like a spiritual freight train loaded with everything you've been praying for. And here's what terrifies the enemy. Once you realize that your age isn't a disadvantage but an advantage, once you understand that your experience isn't baggage but weaponry, once you grasp that this pause has been preparation, you become unstoppable. The devil has been working overtime to convince you that you're too old, too tired, too forgotten. Why? Because he knows what's coming Wednesday, and he's terrified of what you'll do when you finally understand who you really are. If any part of you is whispering, "This might be for me," that's not wishful thinking. That's your spirit remembering what heaven never forgot. Type "I'm ready" in the comments if you feel that stirring, because what I'm about to reveal next will shatter every limitation you've accepted about your future. Because Wednesday isn't just marking your new beginning, it's announcing the return of God's secret weapon, you. You know what most people don't understand about Wednesday? They think it's just hump day, the middle, the boring stretch between Monday's ambition and Friday's freedom. But chosen one, what if I told you that Wednesday is actually the most prophetic day of the week? Think about it. Wednesday sits right in the center, 3 days behind, 3 days ahead. It's the fulcrum, the pivot point, the exact moment where everything can shift. And that's not coincidence. That's divine design. In Hebrew culture, the middle place was sacred. It was where decisions were made, where destinies were determined, where God showed up to change everything. And right now, in your life, you're living in a spiritual Wednesday. You're in that middle place where you can't see the beginning anymore, but you can't quite touch the end either. You've been here before, haven't you? In that space where you're asking yourself, is this breakthrough or breakdown? Is this the beginning of my miracle or the end of my hope? You're standing at that crossroads where every day feels like you're waiting for something to shift, something to change, something to finally make sense. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. What if this Wednesday isn't just the middle? What if it's the door? See, the devil loves to convince you that middle places are dead places. That if you're not at the beginning with fresh excitement or at the end with clear victory, then you must be stuck. He wants you to believe that Wednesday means you're forgotten, overlooked, left behind while others get their breakthrough. But Scripture tells us something different. In Genesis 1:13, it says, "And there was evening, and there was morning the third day." The third day, Wednesday. And what happened on that third day? God spoke vegetation into existence. He made things grow. He brought life from what looked barren. The third day isn't the forgotten day. It's the fertility day. Jesus himself rose on the third day. Not the first day when everything was fresh. Not the seventh day when everything was complete. The third day. The Wednesday of his death and resurrection story. The pivot point that changed all of human history. And I'm telling you right now, with 50 years of watching God move in the impossible, your Wednesday moment has arrived. You feel it, don't you? That stirring in your spirit that something is different about today. That sense that the atmosphere around your life has shifted. That's not your imagination. That's prophetic recognition. Your spirit is picking up on what heaven has already set in motion. While you were sleeping last night, angels were dispatched. Tables were being prepared. Doors were being unlocked. Resources were being positioned. And your name, yes, your specific name was being whispered in the courts of heaven. The chosen one is ready. The chosen one has endured enough. The chosen one has learned what they needed to learn. It's time. But here's what's going to shock you. This Wednesday breakthrough isn't coming because you finally got everything right. It's not coming because you prayed harder or believed stronger or worked more faithfully than before. This Wednesday is happening because God has been orchestrating a divine setup, and you've just reached the appointed time. Remember the woman with the issue of blood? She had been bleeding for 12 years. 12 years of Wednesday living. 12 years of being in the middle, not dead, but not truly alive. And then one day, she pressed through the crowd and touched the hem of Jesus' garment. But here's what most people miss about that story. Jesus said, "Daughter, your faith has made you well." He didn't say your desperation made you well. He didn't say your perfect attendance at synagogue made you well. He said your faith. But faith in what? Faith that this was her moment. Faith that this day was different. Faith that she had reached her Wednesday, her pivot point, and everything was about to change. That's exactly where you are right now. You're in your touch the hem moment. Your "this is the day" declaration. Your divine Wednesday, where what's been hemorrhaging in your life for years is about to be permanently healed. And the enemy is terrified. He's been working overtime to convince you that this feeling you have is just wishful thinking, that this sense of anticipation is just false hope, that you've been disappointed too many times before to believe again. But what if this time is different? What if all those other disappointments were just preparing you to recognize the real thing when it finally arrived? What if every almost was training you to grab hold when the absolutely showed up? I need you to understand something crucial. This Wednesday isn't just about you getting something, it's about you becoming someone. God isn't just changing your circumstances, He's revealing your identity. He's showing you who you've always been under all that pain, all that waiting, all that wondering if you heard Him right. You are not a victim of timing. You are a chosen vessel positioned for such a time as this. And this Wednesday, this exact Wednesday, is your Esther moment. Your "if I perish breakthrough." Your "I was born for this revelation." The question isn't whether God is going to move. The question is, are you ready to move with Him? Because what I'm about to tell you next will completely transform how you see not just this Wednesday, but every Wednesday for the rest of your life. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core, chosen one. Every single burden you've carried, every sleepless night you've endured, every tear you've cried in the darkness when no one was watching, that wasn't punishment. That was preparation. You see, most people live their entire lives never experiencing the kind of spiritual weight that's been crushing your chest for years. They sleep peacefully while you wrestle with God at 3 a.m. They make small talk while you're having conversations with eternity. They worry about weekend plans while you're carrying the burdens of generations on your shoulders. Why do you think that is? Here's the truth they never told you in Sunday school. God doesn't give his heaviest assignments to his weakest soldiers. He gives them to the ones he's been secretly preparing in the furnace of affliction. The ones who can handle what others would crumble under. You buried things no one else knew, didn't you? Dreams that died before they had a chance to breathe. Friendships that withered when people saw the real you. Pieces of your identity that you had to kill just to survive another day. You kept going when others sat down. You kept believing when others gave up. You kept praying when heaven felt like concrete. That's not weakness, that's chosenness. Look at Joseph, 17 years old when his brothers threw him in a pit. 13 years in Potiphar's house and Pharaoh's prison. 13 years of wondering if God had forgotten his promise. 13 years of carrying weight that would have broken ordinary men. But here's what Joseph didn't know while he was rotting in that cell. God wasn't punishing him. God was positioning him. Because when famine came to Egypt, when nations were starving, when kingdoms were collapsing, they needed someone who had already learned how to survive in the darkness. They needed someone who had been strengthened by suffering. They needed Joseph. And right now, the world needs you. You think you've been overlooked. You think God forgot about you while he was blessing everyone else. Let me tell you what really happened. You weren't overlooked. You were hidden. Because God wasn't trying to impress people with your story. He was preparing power. Think about Anna, 84 years old, widowed after just 7 years of marriage. 84 years of waiting in the temple, fasting, praying, watching other people's children grow up while her womb stayed empty. 84 years of carrying the weight of unfulfilled promises. But when the Christ child walked through those temple doors, who was ready? Who had the spiritual sensitivity to recognize the Messiah when he looked like just another baby? Anna. Because her weight had become her strength, her suffering had become her sight. What if your pain has been preparing you to recognize something others will miss? And what about Caleb? 85 years old when he said to Joshua, "Give me this mountain." 85. While other men his age were sitting in rocking chairs, complaining about their arthritis, Caleb was asking for the hardest assignment. Why? Because 45 years of wandering in the wilderness hadn't weakened him. It had proven what he was made of. The giants that terrified the younger generation? Caleb looked at them and smiled. Because when you've carried the weight of waiting for decades, when you've survived disappointment that should have destroyed you, when you've walked through valleys that swallowed other people, whole giants stop looking so big. Here's what I need you to understand. The weight you've been carrying wasn't meant to crush you. It was meant to build you. Every sleepless night was boot camp for spiritual warfare. Every unanswered prayer was training for faith under fire. Every betrayal was preparation for standing alone, when standing alone matters most. You've been in God's training program, and you didn't even know it. While others were playing church, you were being forged in the fire. While others were chasing comfort, you were developing character. While others were seeking applause, you were learning to hear the voice of God in the silence. And now it's time. Time for what, you ask? Time for the weight to transform into authority. Time for the pressure to become power. Time for the hidden years to become your public testimony. You think God was silent all those years? He wasn't silent. He was preparing your ears to hear frequencies others can't detect. You think he was absent during your darkest hours? He wasn't absent. He was building muscles in your spirit that can lift what others can't even touch. This Wednesday isn't just another day for you. It's the day heaven says, the training is complete, the preparation is finished, the chosen one, is ready. Ready for what? Ready to carry the weight that others can't. Ready to stand in the gap when others fall through. Ready to be the answer to prayers you've never even heard. Because here's the shocking truth. God didn't choose you despite your pain. He chose you because of how you handled it. But wait, before we go any deeper, I need to address something that's happening right now in your body, in your spirit, as you're listening to these words. Some of you felt it the moment I said Wednesday. A jolt, a recognition, something deep inside you that said, yes, this is for me. Others of you are fighting it right now, telling yourself this is just another message, just another video you stumbled across. Let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your soul. Why are you still here? Think about it. How many videos did you scroll past today? How many messages did you ignore? How many times did your finger hover over the skip button, but something you can't name kept you glued to this screen? That's not coincidence, beloved. That's confirmation. Jesus said in John 10:27, "My sheep hear my voice, not might hear, not could hear." Hear, present tense, active, immediate. And right now, if you're one of his sheep, your spirit is vibrating with recognition because the Good Shepherd is calling your name through this message. But here's what most people don't understand about spiritual discernment. They think it's some mystical, far-off thing reserved for prophets and pastors. They think they're not spiritual enough to hear God's voice directly. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Your body is a temple, and temples don't lie. Right now, as I'm speaking, some of you have goosebumps crawling up your arms. Others feel tears you can't explain building behind your eyes. Some of you feel a trembling deep in your chest, like your heart is trying to break free from your ribcage. That's not emotion. That's not psychology. That's the Holy Spirit bearing witness with your spirit that you are a child of God. You see, when God marks a moment, when he appointments a divine encounter, your spirit knows before your mind catches up. Your soul recognizes the frequency of heaven, even when your intellect tries to talk you out of it. But let me tell you what's really happening here, and this might shock you. You didn't find this message. This message found you. For weeks, maybe months, you've been sensing something shifting in the atmosphere around your life. You've woken up with an unexplainable expectancy. You've caught yourself staring out windows, feeling like you're waiting for something but not knowing what. You felt restless in your spirit, like you're on the edge of something significant. And then you clicked on this video. That wasn't random browsing, dear one. That was divine orchestration. God has been preparing your heart to receive what he's about to release on Wednesday, and this message is your pre-game briefing from heaven. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where the enemy of your soul tries his last desperate move to keep you from your destiny. Doubt. Right now, some of you are hearing a voice saying, "This is just another preacher trying to get views. This is just emotional manipulation." You've heard this before. Let me ask you directly, how's that cynicism working out for you? When was the last time you felt truly alive in your spirit? When was the last time you felt God's presence so real you could almost touch it? When was the last time you really believed that God had something specific, something personal, something powerful waiting just for you? If you can't remember, then maybe it's time to silence that lying voice and let your spirit speak. Because here's what I know after 5 decades of watching God move. The people who argue against the miraculous are usually the ones who need it most. Your spirit is hungry. It's been starving on a diet of doubt, surviving on scraps of hope, trying to make it through on fumes of faith. But right now, right here, God is setting a banquet table in the presence of your enemies, including the enemy voice in your own head that says you're not chosen, not special, not marked for anything extraordinary. Listen to me carefully. If you can hear my voice, you are chosen. If this message is resonating in your bones, you are marked. If something inside you is saying, "Yes, this is my time," then Wednesday is your divine appointment. But marking isn't passive. Recognition isn't enough. The Israelites saw the pillar of fire, but they still had to pack their tents and follow it. The disciples heard Jesus call their names, but they still had to drop their nets and walk. What are you going to do with this marking? Are you going to treat Wednesday like just another day? Are you going to wake up and go through the same motions, have the same conversations, think the same thoughts? Or are you going to wake up Wednesday morning knowing that heaven has circled this date on the eternal calendar with your name written beside it? If this word is ringing in your soul, don't just listen. Mark it. Write the date down. Wednesday, today. This is your line in the sand. This is your moment of decision. This is where you stop being a spectator in your own spiritual life and start being a participant in your own breakthrough. Because what I'm about to tell you next will explain exactly why Wednesday isn't just marked for you. Wednesday is when everything you've been waiting for finally breaks loose. But here's what happens when you finally say yes to what God has been orchestrating in secret. Listen to me carefully, chosen one, because what I'm about to describe isn't theory, it's prophecy. It's what heaven has been preparing for you while you've been walking through the wilderness of waiting. The moment you align with this Wednesday breakthrough, something shifts in the atmosphere around your life. Not just spiritually, I'm talking about measurable, tangible changes that will leave you breathless. First, your dreams return. You know those dreams you buried, the ones you convinced yourself were too big, too late, too impossible. Wednesday is resurrection day for dead dreams. God didn't plant those visions in your heart to mock you. He placed them there as prophetic previews of what he was always planning to do through you. Ezekiel 37:5 says, "I will cause breath to enter you, and you will come to life." That breath, that divine wind, is about to blow over the graveyard of your abandoned hopes. What looked dead is about to stand up and walk again. Second, relationships will suddenly make sense. The confusion that's been clouding your connections, the people who drained your energy, the ones who never understood your calling. Watch what happens Wednesday. Clarity cuts through relational fog like a sword. You'll know who belongs and who was just occupying space meant for your divine assignments. Some will fall away without drama. Others will suddenly see you with new eyes. And the right people, the ones heaven handpicked for your next chapter, they'll appear as if from nowhere. Third, you'll experience peace that defies logic. I'm not talking about temporary calm. I'm talking about supernatural peace that makes no earthly sense. While storms rage around you, you'll find yourself in an inexplicable bubble of divine tranquility. Isaiah 26:3 promises, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." Your circumstances might not change overnight, but your response to them will be completely transformed. What used to steal your sleep will no longer have access to your peace. Fourth, provision appears from unexpected sources. Money you weren't expecting, opportunities that seem to fall from the sky, resources flowing from directions you never considered. When God opens the windows of heaven, Malachi 3:10 says he pours out blessings until there's no room to receive them. But here's the shocking part. You won't be scrambling for it anymore. You won't be chasing it down. When you align with divine timing, provision chases you down. Fifth, your body responds to spiritual breakthrough. Physical healing accelerates when your spirit aligns with God's timing. That pain you've carried, that weakness that's defined your limitations, your body is about to remember what it feels like to house a spirit that's fully alive. 3 John 1-2 declares, "I pray that you may enjoy good health, and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well." When your soul prospers, your body follows. Sixth, strength returns to your inner man. That spiritual exhaustion that made you want to quit, that weariness that settled in your bones. Isaiah 40:31 says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles." You're about to feel strength you forgot you had. Not human strength that burns out, divine strength that increases with use. You will wake up Thursday morning and feel lighter. Not because your circumstances changed overnight, but because you changed dimensions. You moved from existing in the realm of delay into dwelling in the realm of divine timing. Listen to what the psalmist declares in Psalm 126. We were like those who dream again. Our mouths were filled with laughter. Dream again. Did you catch that? Not dream for the first time, dream again. This is about resurrection, not just birth. This is about God breathing life back into what looked finished. Your mouth is about to be filled with laughter, not forced joy, not fake smiles, supernatural laughter that bubbles up from a soul that finally understands what God was doing in the darkness. But here's the urgency you need to understand. This divine alignment doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It doesn't pause for your fears. It doesn't slow down for your doubts. Wednesday is moving toward you, whether you're ready or not. The question isn't whether this shift is coming. The question is whether you'll position yourself to receive it or let it pass by while you're still arguing with heaven about timing. Some of you are one yes away from everything changing. One moment of surrender away from breakthrough. One act of faith away from walking into the life you've been praying for in secret. If this is your dream again moment, comment, "My Wednesday is here." Let your spirit speak before your logic catches up. Let your faith declare what your eyes haven't seen yet. Because what's about to happen isn't just about you stepping into blessing. It's about blessing stepping into you, transforming you into the vessel God always intended you to be. But there's something else you need to know about this Wednesday breakthrough, something that will determine not just what you receive, but what you become. But let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 73 when she first heard the whisper. It came on a Tuesday morning in 2018, while she sat in her kitchen in Queens, staring at unpaid bills scattered across her table like autumn leaves. The voice wasn't audible, but it was unmistakable. "Your time is now, daughter. Step forward." She felt it deep in her chest, that divine stirring you know so well. The same stirring you're feeling right now as you listen to these words. Margaret had a gift, a calling to counsel broken women, to speak life into dead marriages, to be the bridge between despair and hope in her community. But Margaret hesitated. "I'm too old," she whispered back to heaven. "Let someone younger do it, someone with more energy, more education, more everything." So she scrolled past the signs, ignored the synchronicities, dismissed the dreams that came 3 nights in a row, each one showing her standing before crowds of weeping women, speaking words that transformed their lives forever. Margaret chose safety over calling, comfort over commission. 3 years later, I stood at her funeral. The pastor spoke of her kindness, her gentle spirit. But I knew something else. I knew about the ministry that died with her. The women who never found healing because Margaret never found courage. The marriages that crumbled because the counselor heaven had prepared never answered the call. You see, chosen one, God doesn't send backup plans for divine appointments. When the Lord spoke to Moses at the burning bush, he didn't say, "If you're not available, I'll find someone else." When he called Esther for such a time as this, there was no plan B waiting in the wings. Divine timing has expiration dates, and some opportunities don't knock forever. They fade like morning fog when we wait too long to walk through them. Scripture is brutally clear about this. In Revelation 3:20, Jesus says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." But notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't promise to knock indefinitely. He doesn't guarantee the door will remain open while we debate and deliberate and drown in our own doubt. Look at the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew 25. 5 were ready when the bridegroom came, 5 were not. And when those unprepared virgins finally arrived, what did they find? The door was shut. Permanently, irreversibly. Their hesitation cost them everything. Is your door still open today? Can you still feel that divine stirring in your spirit? Because I need you to understand something that will either terrify you or liberate you. That stirring isn't guaranteed to last forever. The enemy knows something about divine timing that most believers never learn. He knows he can't stop God's call on your life, but he can delay your response until the season passes. He whispers the same lies he whispered to Margaret. You're too old, too broken, too late, too ordinary. And every day you listen to those lies, every Wednesday you let slip by without stepping forward, is another day closer to the door closing. Think about this for a moment. Really think. How many divine appointments have you already missed? How many times has heaven knocked and found you too busy, too scared, too convinced of your own inadequacy to answer? The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years because they refused to enter the promised land when God said now. An entire generation died in the desert, never experiencing what God had prepared for them. Their children inherited what should have been theirs. Don't let your destiny become someone else's inheritance. I'm not trying to frighten you. I'm trying to wake you up. Because right now, as you listen to these words, divine opportunity is standing at your door. Wednesday is approaching like a spiritual deadline, and heaven is holding its breath, waiting for your response. You feel it, don't you? That familiar stirring, that quickening in your spirit that says, this message is for me. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. But feeling it isn't enough. Margaret felt it too. The rich young ruler in Mark 10 felt it when Jesus looked at him with love and called him to discipleship. But feeling the call and answering the call are two entirely different things. The rich young ruler walked away, grieved, because he had great possessions. What are you possessing that's keeping you from possessing your destiny? What comfort zone has become your cage? What familiar fear feels safer than faith? Time doesn't stop for anyone. While you're debating whether you're worthy, whether you're ready, whether it's really God's voice or just your imagination, Wednesday is coming whether you're prepared or not. And here's what breaks my heart. I've watched too many Margarets, too many chosen ones who heard the whisper and chose silence. Too many divine appointments that became divine disappointments because someone thought they had more time. You don't have more time. You have right now. So I'm asking you directly, with the weight of 50 years of ministry behind these words, what will you do when Wednesday arrives? Will you step forward into everything God has prepared for you? Or will you be the one who looks back years from now and says, that message was for me, and I scrolled past it? Because Wednesday isn't just another day on your calendar. It's Judgment Day for your obedience. Listen to me, chosen one. We've walked through the valley of your waiting together. We've uncovered the divine conspiracy behind your delays. We've seen how heaven has been orchestrating every moment, every setback, every tear you've cried in the darkness when you thought God had forgotten your name. But here's what I need you to understand with crystal clarity. All of that was yesterday's story. Today, this Wednesday, this exact moment you're breathing, this is where your new beginning erupts from the ashes of everything that tried to destroy you. You want to know why you've suffered, why you've endured what would have broken lesser souls. Because ordinary people can't carry extraordinary destinies. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Every rejection was redirection. Every closed door was divine protection. Every no you heard was God saying, not yet, but soon. Soon is now. The enemy thought he had you cornered. He thought those years of silence meant God had changed his mind about you. He thought your age disqualified you. Your past mistakes cancelled your future. Your current circumstances defined your eternal possibilities. He was wrong. Do you hear that sound? That's the sound of chains breaking. That's the sound of prison doors swinging open. That's the sound of heaven's vault being unlocked with your name on the combination. This Wednesday marks your new beginning. Not next month, not after you get it all together. Now, I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. You are not too old for God's best. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. Abraham was 99 when God promised him a son. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your best years aren't behind you. They're about to begin. But here's the part that will either liberate you or terrify you. This beginning requires your participation. God won't force you to step through the door. He's opening. He won't drag you into your destiny. He's extending his hand, but you have to reach out and take it. Right now, there are people watching this who are paralyzed by fear. What if I'm too late? What if I missed my chance? What if this is just another disappointment waiting to happen? Stop it. Stop disqualifying yourself from what God has already qualified you for. Stop letting yesterday's failures write tomorrow's story. Stop allowing your current circumstances to define your eternal possibilities. The prophet Isaiah declared, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up, do you not perceive it?" That word now isn't past tense, it's present tense. It's this moment tense. It's Wednesday tense. God is doing a new thing in your life now. But I need to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. This new beginning will cost you something. It will cost you your excuses. It will cost you your victim mentality. It will cost you the comfortable familiarity of your limitations. Are you willing to pay that price? Because on the other side of that payment is a life you've only dared to dream about. On the other side is the version of yourself that makes your current struggles look like preparation, not punishment. On the other side is the person God always saw when he looked at you, even when you couldn't see it yourself. This Wednesday isn't just another day. It's your resurrection day. And just like Jesus didn't stay in the tomb, you don't have to stay in the tomb of your past failures, your current struggles, your age-related fears, your financial limitations, your relationship disappointments. The stone is being rolled away, but resurrection requires participation. Mary had to choose to go to the tomb. The disciples had to choose to believe. You have to choose to step out of the grave clothes of your old identity and walk into the light of who God says you are. Say it out loud right now. I receive my new beginning today, this Wednesday, in the name of Jesus. Don't whisper it like you're ashamed. Declare it like you mean it. Speak it like your life depends on it. Because it does. Write it in the comments. Speak it in your house. Whisper it if you have to, but mark it. Mark this moment. Mark this day. Mark this Wednesday as the day everything changed. Not because of what you did, but because of what God has already done. Not because you finally got worthy, but because you finally got willing. The angels are watching. Heaven is holding its breath. And your new beginning, your real beginning, the beginning that will make sense of every ending you've endured, it starts when you say yes. Will you say yes? Will you step through the door God is opening? Will you trust Him one more time, even though you've been disappointed before? Because this Wednesday, this isn't just another chance. This is your chance, the one you've been praying for, the one you've been waiting for, the one heaven has been preparing for you since before you were born. Your new beginning is here. What will you do with it? Between revelation and obedience lies resistance. You know what Wednesday is, don't you? You felt it in your spirit the moment I said it, but here you are, still hesitating, still questioning, still standing at the threshold, like you're afraid to take that first step forward. Let me tell you why. Some of you are standing at this doorway barefoot and bleeding. You want to walk forward, but all you can feel is the pain of where you've been. The church people who betrayed you when you needed them most. The pastor who took your tithe money and bought himself a new car while you struggled to pay rent. The prayer circle that gossiped about your marriage falling apart instead of actually praying for restoration. You've been spiritually disappointed so many times that trust feels like a foreign language. And can I tell you something that might shock you? You're secretly angry at God. Oh, you won't say it out loud because good Christians aren't supposed to feel that way. But late at night, when nobody's watching, you've whispered those dangerous words. God, where were you when I needed you most? You prayed for healing and watched your spouse die anyway. You begged for breakthrough and lost your house instead. You cried out for rescue and felt heaven go silent while your world collapsed around you. That anger? It's real, and God knows it. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Your disappointment with people is not the same as God's disappointment with you. The humans who failed you were never your source. They were just broken vessels trying to carry water they didn't have. Wednesday is God saying, let me show you who I really am. Right now, you're like the children of Israel standing at the Jordan River. God promised them the promised land, but when they got to the edge, all they could see was rushing water and uncertainty. They had the revelation. They knew God's promise. But between that revelation and their obedience lay fear, doubt, and the memory of every time they'd been disappointed before. Joshua 1-9 cuts through all that hesitation. Be strong and courageous. The Lord goes with you. Not the church, not the pastor, not the people who let you down. The Lord himself goes with you. You want to know why you're stalling? Because you've confused God's voice with human voices. You've let broken people become the filter through which you hear heaven speaking. But Wednesday is God removing that filter. This is him speaking directly to your spirit, bypassing every disappointment, every betrayal, every moment you felt abandoned. The resistance you feel isn't coming from your circumstances. It's coming from your history. Every time you almost stepped forward before someone pulled the rug out from under you. Every time you trusted, you got burned. Every time you believed, you got broken. So now, when God says Wednesday, your soul wants to believe, but your mind says, not again. But what if I told you that every betrayal was actually preparing you for this moment? What if every disappointment was God separating you from dependency on people so you'd learn to depend solely on him? What if every closed door was heaven saying, not that way, this way? Your bleeding feet are proof you've been walking. Your scars are evidence you survived what was meant to destroy you. And now Wednesday stands before you like a dare from heaven itself. God is saying, I know you're hurt. I know you're scared. I know you've been disappointed, but I'm not them. I'm not going anywhere. And this Wednesday is going to prove it. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is whether you're tired enough of standing still to risk believing again. Some of you need to hear this. Your spiritual winter wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Every tear you cried in secret, every prayer you whispered in desperation, every moment you felt completely alone, God was there, building something in you that could only be forged in the fire of disappointment. Say this out loud right now. God, I'm still hurting, but I trust you with my feet. Write it down. Let heaven hear it, because Wednesday isn't asking for your perfection. It's asking for your permission. The doorway is open. Your name is called. The only question left is this. Will you let Wednesday heal what people broke? Or will you let broken people steal what Wednesday offers? Your next season is voice activated. You know what's been haunting you, don't you? That gnawing feeling that you've been standing at the same door for months, maybe years, knocking, waiting, praying the same prayers, living in the same patterns, accepting the same limitations. But here's what's about to shatter everything you thought you knew about breakthrough. Your next season isn't waiting for God to move. It's waiting for you to speak. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. The threshold you've been staring at isn't just a doorway. It's a living place. It holds memory and momentum. It remembers every tear you've shed standing there. It carries the weight of every dream you've whispered in the dark. And heaven waits for the ones who speak before they see. You've been treating your breakthrough like a lottery ticket, haven't you? Hoping, wishing, crossing your fingers that someday, somehow, God will just move on your behalf. But that's not how the kingdom operates. Doors in the kingdom don't open with keys. They open with faith-soaked yeses. Think about Peter, middle of the night, storm raging, waves crashing. And there's Jesus, walking on water like it's solid ground. Now here's the part they don't preach about. When Peter stepped out of that boat, the water didn't turn into stone. It turned into obedience. The water was still water. The storm was still raging. The circumstances hadn't changed one bit. But Peter's yes. Peter's voice activated yes. That's what held him up. Not the absence of the storm, but the presence of spoken faith in the middle of it. And you've been waiting for your water to turn into stone. You've been waiting for the storm to stop. You've been waiting for perfect conditions to say yes to what God's been whispering in your spirit. But Wednesday is different. Wednesday carries a threshold anointing that demands your voice. You see, there's something the enemy doesn't want you to understand about the power of your spoken word. When you've been chosen by God, when you've been marked for something greater, your voice carries creative authority. Not just prayer, not just worship, but declaration, command, divine partnership with heaven's agenda. Remember when God said, "Let there be light"? He didn't think it. He didn't hope for it. He didn't wait for the right conditions. He spoke it into existence. And guess what? You carry that same image, that same authority, that same voice-activated power. But you've been whispering when God's been waiting for you to declare. Here's the psychological trap that's been keeping you stuck. You think you need to see it before you can say it. You think you need proof before you can proclaim it. You think you need confirmation before you can command it. That's backwards kingdom thinking. In God's economy, speaking comes before seeing. Declaration comes before demonstration. Your yes comes before his manifestation. And this Wednesday, this appointed Wednesday, is when your voice catches up to your calling. You want to know why you've felt that stirring in your spirit lately? Why sleep has been restless? Why your prayers feel different? It's because the threshold anointing is awakening your voice. God's been tuning your spiritual frequency to match heaven's frequency. And when that alignment happens, your words don't just hit the atmosphere, they rearrange it. But here's where most people miss it. They think breakthrough is about God doing something for them. Breakthrough is about God doing something through them. Your voice, your declaration, your willingness to speak into the void before you see the victory. Moses didn't see the Red Sea part and then lift his staff. He lifted his staff, spoke the command, and then watched impossibility bow to authority. Joshua didn't see the walls of Jericho crumble and then shout. He shouted with faith-soaked conviction and then watched centuries of opposition collapse in moments. David didn't see Goliath fall and then release the stone. He declared victory over a giant that everyone else feared, and then watched one smooth stone become a weapon of mass destruction. Your turn, chosen one. What giant are you facing that needs to hear your voice? What Red Sea situation requires your spoken authority? What Jericho wall has been standing too long in your life? This Wednesday isn't just another day. It's your voice activation day. The day you stop asking God to do what He's already empowered you to declare. The day you stop begging for breakthrough and start commanding it. Because here's the shocking truth they don't teach in most churches. God's been waiting on your yes longer than you've been waiting on His move. Type this right now. Yes, Lord, I'm stepping now. Not next week when you feel more confident. Not when the conditions look perfect. Not when everyone believes in you. Now. While your heart is pounding, while fear is screaming, while logic is questioning. Now, because the threshold you've been standing at, it's been waiting for the sound of your voice. And Wednesday is when everything you speak begins to reshape everything you see. But there's something even more powerful about to be released through your voice than just personal breakthrough. Wednesday was not a conclusion, it was ignition. Momentum doesn't come from waiting. It comes from moving in trust. But here's what's breaking my heart tonight. Chosen one. I'm watching too many of God's people sitting in spiritual parking lots, engines running, going absolutely nowhere. You've been given the keys to your destiny. The tank is full of divine favor, and yet you're still asking God for permission to drive. Why are you still sitting there? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Your movement is more powerful than your circumstances. Your next step carries more authority than your current situation, but you've been convinced that you need to see the whole staircase before you take the first step. That's not faith, that's fear dressed up in religious language. Look at the lepers in 2 Kings chapter 7. 4 men sitting at the gate of a besieged city, dying of starvation. The enemy army surrounded them. Death was certain if they stayed. Death was probable if they moved. But listen to what they said. Why stay here until we die? Why stay here until you die? Why stay in that dead-end job until your spirit dies? Why stay in that toxic relationship until your joy dies? Why stay in that small thinking until your dreams die? Why stay in that comfort zone until your calling dies? Those 4 lepers made a decision that night that changed the course of an entire nation. They stood up. They started walking. And here's the miracle. As they moved toward the enemy camp, God multiplied the sound of their footsteps until it sounded like a massive army approaching. The enemy heard chariots. They heard horses. They heard the thundering of thousands of soldiers. But it was just 4 dying men who refused to die sitting still. When you move, heaven multiplies the sound of your steps. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Your movement creates spiritual acoustics that the enemy can't calculate. Your obedience generates supernatural reverberations that shake the very foundations of hell itself. Every step you take in faith sounds like an army advancing in the spirit realm, but you've been sitting there, paralyzed by what-ifs. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if I'm not ready? What if I'm too old? What if it's too late? What if you're exactly where God needs you to be to do something He's never done before? Here's what happened when those lepers finally moved. The enemy army fled in terror, leaving behind silver, gold, food, and everything they needed to survive. The provision was waiting on the other side of their movement. Your blessing isn't waiting for your perfection. Your breakthrough isn't waiting for your confidence. Your destiny isn't waiting for your fear to disappear. Your miracle is waiting for your movement. I've seen 70-year-olds start businesses that change their communities. I've watched 65-year-olds go back to school and launch ministries that touched thousands. I've witnessed 80-year-olds write books that became bestsellers. Age wasn't their limitation. Hesitation was their only enemy. The cemetery is full of people who were going to start tomorrow. But not you. Not anymore. Because Wednesday lit something inside you that can't be extinguished. Wednesday wasn't just a day, it was a download, a divine injection of momentum that's been building in your spirit ever since. You feel it, don't you? That restlessness, that stirring. That's not anxiety, that's anticipation. That's heaven's way of telling you the moment has arrived. When God gives you momentum, hesitation becomes rebellion. Those lepers didn't have a strategy session. They didn't form a committee. They didn't wait for a confirmation sign. They just stood up and started walking toward their answer. And by the time the sun rose, they were the wealthiest men in the city. What if your Wednesday step becomes your Thursday breakthrough? Here's what momentum does. It turns your whisper into a roar. It turns your limp into a stride. It turns your maybe into a yes. It turns your someday into today. It turns your if into when. But momentum requires something from you that comfort can't provide. Trust in motion, faith that walks, belief that moves, hope that steps forward even when the ground ahead looks uncertain. The enemy of your soul has been whispering the same lie to you for months, maybe years. Wait until you're ready. Wait until you're qualified. Wait until you're worthy. But God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And you've been called. Wednesday confirmed it. Your spirit knows it. Your heart feels it. Your mind is finally catching up to what heaven declared about you before you were born. You weren't created to be a spiritual spectator. You weren't designed to watch others walk into their destiny while you cheer from the sidelines. You weren't called to be an encourager of everyone else's dreams, while your own dreams collect dust in the corner of your heart. The momentum that started Wednesday is building towards something magnificent. But momentum without movement becomes frustration. Power without purpose becomes pressure. Calling without action becomes crisis. So what are you going to do with this divine momentum that's burning in your bones right now? Almost obedient is still disobedient. You were almost free. You almost forgave. You almost trusted again. You almost stepped into that promise God whispered to your heart 3 years ago. You almost quit the job that's been draining your soul. You almost had that conversation that could change everything. You almost... Stop right there, chosen one. Do you hear what you just said? Almost. That word has become your spiritual prison, and you don't even realize you're locked inside it. For months, maybe years, you've been living in the valley of almost close enough to see the promised land, but never close enough to possess it. Here's the brutal truth that's going to shake you. Almost obedient is still disobedient. Almost faithful is still faithless. Almost trusting is still doubting. And almost ready means you're still not ready. The children of Israel spent 40 years in the wilderness because they were almost obedient. They almost trusted God completely. They almost believed His promises fully. They saw the promised land with their own eyes, but almost seeing isn't possessing. Almost entering isn't inheriting. Numbers 14:24 says, "But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land." Fully. Not almost. Not partially. Not when it's convenient. Fully. And that's exactly what Wednesday is demanding from you. You've been dancing on the edge of breakthrough for so long that you've made a home there. You've gotten comfortable being uncomfortable. You've normalized being close but not committed. You've accepted being interested but not invested. But here's what almost has cost you. Years. Dreams deferred until they became dreams denied. Relationships that could have been healed. Opportunities that knocked once and never returned. Callings that grew quiet because you kept saying, maybe tomorrow. Almost married the love of your life. Almost started that business. Almost moved to that city God kept bringing up in your prayers. Almost forgave your father before he passed. Almost called your estranged daughter before pride built that wall too high to climb. Almost is the enemy's favorite word because it keeps you perpetually close to breakthrough but never experiencing it. Listen to me carefully. Wednesday isn't interested in your almost. This divine appointment isn't for the hesitant, the half-hearted, or the maybe-minded. Wednesday is calling for the fully committed, the all-in, the ones who say yes before they see the whole staircase. Jesus told the rich young ruler in Matthew 19, "If you want to be perfect, go, sell your possessions, and give to the poor." The man almost did it. He was almost ready to follow fully, but almost keeping the commandments meant he kept none of them. Almost following Jesus meant he followed no one. He walked away sad because almost never satisfies the soul. How many times have you walked away sad because you were almost ready to trust God completely, almost ready to step into that calling, almost ready to forgive, almost ready to love again? Your spirit is stirring right now because you recognize yourself in these words. You've been living in spiritual purgatory, not backslidden enough to feel convicted, but not surrendered enough to feel breakthrough. You've been existing in the gray zone of almost obedient. But God is binary. His promises are yes and amen, not yes and almost. His calling is come, not maybe come later. His timeline is now, not when you feel completely ready. The Israelites who entered the promised land weren't more qualified than the ones who died in the wilderness. They were just more obedient. Wednesday is your Joshua moment. It's your choose this day whom you will serve declaration. It's your Red Sea that demands you walk forward into the water before you see it part. You want to know why your prayers feel like they hit the ceiling? Because almost prayers from almost believers receive almost answers. You want to know why your faith feels weak? Because almost faith produces almost results. But almost obedient people stay locked outside promised lands. God told Abraham to leave his country, his people, his father's household. Not almost leave. Not gradually leave. Not leave when it's convenient. Leave. Genesis 12:4 says, "So Abram went, as the Lord had told him, fully, immediately, completely." That's the spirit Wednesday is demanding from you. You've been asking God to meet you halfway when He's asking you to go all the way. You've been negotiating with breakthrough when breakthrough demands surrender. You've been trying to keep one foot in Egypt while claiming you want to possess Canaan. No more almosts. No more maybes. No more when. I'm readies. Wednesday is here, and it's bringing a divine ultimatum. Full obedience or continued wilderness. Every patriarch, every prophet, every person God used significantly had to graduate from almost to absolutely. David almost stayed in the field when Samuel came calling, but he ran toward his anointing. Mary almost questioned the angel's announcement, but she said, "Let it be unto me." Peter almost stayed in the boat, but he stepped onto the water. Your almost season is ending this Wednesday because God is tired of you living beneath your calling. The question isn't whether you're qualified for what's coming. The question is whether you're ready to be fully obedient to what He's asking. Not almost ready, not getting ready, ready. If you're done living on the edge of breakthrough, if you're finished with the exhaustion of almost, if you're ready to step fully into what God has been preparing for you, then type this in the comments. No more almosts. I'm ready for fully. Because Wednesday isn't coming to the almost obedient. Wednesday is coming to those who are ready to follow fully. Chosen one, let me paint you a picture of what's waiting on the other side of Wednesday's door. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't theory, it's testimony. It's what happens when heaven decides to stop holding back and starts pouring out. You think you've seen God move in your life before? You haven't seen anything yet. When you walk through that Wednesday threshold, you're not stepping into chaos, you're stepping into confirmation. Every promise God whispered to you in the dark of night, every dream He planted in your heart during those lonely seasons, they're all about to resurrect with a vengeance. Picture this. Dreams that have been dead for decades, suddenly drawing breath again. That business idea you buried 20 years ago, it's stirring. That ministry calling you thought you missed, it's awakening. That relationship you thought was over forever, watch what God does when He decides to restore what the enemy thought he destroyed. But here's what shook me to my core when I witnessed this transformation in countless lives. The favor doesn't knock politely, it kicks down doors. It shows up uninvited to conversations where your name wasn't even mentioned. It arrives like a flood in the middle of your drought season. You want to know what this looks like in real time? Let me tell you about Margaret, 73 years old, who thought her purpose died with her husband. Wednesday came, and within 2 weeks, a publishing company called her about the journal she'd been writing for 40 years. They didn't just want to publish it, they offered her a 6-figure advance. She hadn't even sent it to them. That's not luck, beloved. That's what happens when heaven decides your time of hiddenness is over. Remember Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? They were thrown into a fire so hot it killed the soldiers who threw them in. But here's what most people miss. They didn't find Jesus after they survived the fire. They found Him already inside it, walking with them in the flames. Chosen one, you're not walking into chaos. You're walking into the fire where Jesus has been waiting for you all along. The fire that follows faith isn't destruction, it's purification, it's acceleration. It's the supernatural heating up of everything God planted in you that was dormant. And when you come out, and you will come out, you won't even smell like smoke. But let me be brutally honest with you. This fire will burn away everything that isn't authentic. Every mask you've worn, every people-pleasing pattern, every small version of yourself you've settled for, it's all going up in flames. And you know what? You're going to thank God for it. Because on the other side of that fire, relationships start flowing toward you instead of away from you. Not just any relationships, divine connections. People who see your value before you even open your mouth. Partners who complement your calling instead of competing with it. Family members who finally understand what God placed in you. Resources begin to chase you down. like you've been running from abundance your whole life. Money stops being a struggle and starts being a tool. Opportunities stop requiring you to beg and start requiring you to choose. Doors don't just open, they swing wide and refuse to close. Your health starts responding to the joy flowing through your spirit. That chronic pain you've carried for years, it starts loosening its grip. That depression that visits every winter, it finds no place to land in your renewed mind. Your body begins to remember what it feels like to be energized by purpose instead of drained by survival. But here's the part that will bring you to your knees. Your prayers stop feeling like you're shouting into a void and start feeling like conversations with your best friend. God's voice becomes so clear you wonder how you ever missed it before. His direction becomes so obvious you stop second-guessing every decision. This is what happens when the fire that follows faith ignites everything God placed in you. You become unstoppable, not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally aligned. Not because you're pushing doors, but because doors are opening in rhythm with your footsteps. Not because you're chasing dreams, but because dreams are manifesting in sync with your obedience. The enemy thought he could keep you in the valley forever. He thought if he delayed you long enough, you'd give up. He thought if he made you wait long enough, you'd settle for less. He thought wrong. Wednesday isn't just your new beginning, it's his worst nightmare coming true. So, here's my question for you, chosen one. Are you ready to stop playing small? Are you ready to stop apologizing for the greatness God placed in you? Are you ready to walk into the fire where Jesus has been waiting to reveal who you really are? Because once you step through that Wednesday door, there's no going back to the old you, the old limitations, the old excuses, the old level of living. The fire that follows faith doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your spiritual DNA. Chosen one, as we close this sacred moment together, I need you to hold on to 3 eternal truths that will carry you through not just this Wednesday, but every day that follows. First, remember this. Your delays were never denials. Every closed door, every unanswered prayer, every season that felt like spiritual silence, it was all divine positioning. God wasn't ignoring you. He was preparing you for something your past self couldn't have handled. Second, Wednesday isn't just a day, it's a declaration. When you wake up this Wednesday morning, you're not waking up to another ordinary day. You're waking up to a divine appointment that's been scheduled in heaven's calendar since before you drew your first breath. And third, the fire that follows your faith will burn away everything except what God placed in you. You're not walking into destruction, you're walking into divine construction. You're being rebuilt from the inside out. But here's what I want you to know with absolute certainty. You are not walking this path alone. Even when it feels like everyone else has moved on, even when it seems like your prayers are echoing in empty space, God is closer than your next heartbeat. He's been orchestrating every detail of your story, including this very moment when our spirits connected through this message. And this community, your brothers and sisters who are listening right now, we're all walking this journey together. Some of us are a few steps ahead, some are right beside you, and some are coming up behind. But we're family. We're chosen ones who understand the weight of carrying a divine calling in a world that doesn't always recognize it. I want you to pause right now and ask yourself this question. What would you do if you really knew that failure was impossible? What dream would you resurrect? What calling would you finally answer? What version of yourself would you become? Because, beloved, that's not a hypothetical question. That's Wednesday's invitation. Now, let me pray over you. If you're comfortable, place your hand over your heart and receive this blessing. Father God, I stand in agreement with every chosen one hearing my voice right now. Lord, you see the tears they've cried in secret. You know the dreams they've buried. You understand the weight they've carried and the battles they've fought in silence. This Wednesday, I speak resurrection over every dead dream. I speak restoration over every broken relationship. I speak provision over every area of lack. I speak clarity over every confused mind and peace over every anxious heart. God, let this Wednesday be the day their spiritual winter ends and their divine spring begins. Open doors that no man can shut. Provide resources that come from unexpected places. Send relationships that build them up instead of tear them down. Give them the courage to walk through the fire, knowing that you're already in the flames waiting for them. Help them to trust your timing even when they can't see your plan. And surround them with your favor like a shield. In the mighty name of Jesus, I declare that their best days are not behind them, they're just beginning. Amen. Chosen one, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is one thing you're believing God for this Wednesday? Let's create a chain of faith where each testimony encourages the next person to believe bigger. And if this message stirred something in your spirit, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You might be the bridge God uses to bring His word to another chosen one who's been waiting for this exact encouragement. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because God is moving in this community and you don't want to miss what He's saying next. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to download into your spirit today. You are seen, you are loved, and you are chosen. Your Wednesday breakthrough starts now. Go in peace, knowing that heaven is cheering for you.